This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Luke Sylvia and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic. What's up, brother? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is April 8th, 2024. Jonathan Osborne here, as always, joined by my co-host, Luke Sylvia. Luke, what's up, brother?
Oh, joined by my great brother, Sketch. And man, I couldn't be any better, especially after that disaster of a game that we'll talk about against the Hornets. But now, as everybody should know, if you're listening to this, watching this, your Orlando Magic are number 3 in the East. And it is absolutely ridiculous that I could be so hyped about a number 3 in the East and still be kind of looking over my shoulder and hoping we don't make the play-in instead. It's ridiculous. But keep winning games, and we'll head in a good direction. But yeah, the Magic number, quote-unquote, keeps dwindling, which is good news for us.
Special teams, special plays, special plays.
Just all
yeah, the Orlando
quotes.
Magic. He's just very funny. Anyways, we've got a couple of games to break down since the last episode. Obviously, the loss Friday at Charlotte, very disappointing. We will talk about that. Like the worst loss of the season, arguably, with like consecutive games. Then you have the best win of the season, like the biggest game of the season. So a lot to talk about, a lot to break down. We're going to talk about that Charlotte game. Mixed reactions from the Magic fan base, like if you're on, social media and obviously Twitter. So we'll have some discussion there just about like where are we as a fan base really in terms of like our expectations with this team and how to manage those expectations. I don't know that there's a right or a wrong way to do that. There's just simply like different perspectives. And I feel like it'll be helpful for us to talk about that a little bit. So people that like, I tweet most of the time from the Twitter account, and I'm very emotional. I'll never, ever apologize for that. I am who I am. I've loved this team most of my life, and I'm not going anywhere, but this is what we do, right? So when we're reacting in the moment, like obviously I can be very emotional, but I feel like there's a method to the madness, and we'll sort of get into all of that. But we just watching around the league tonight, there was a ton of games that mattered for the Magic. Obviously, the Magic game versus the Bulls, Cavs versus the Clippers, which the Cavs blew like a 26-point lead in that game to lose to the Clippers. The Pacers beat the Heat by 2. What else were we looking at? The Knicks beat the Bucks 122-109, and then the 76ers beat the Spurs in double overtime. And obviously, we're going to do the state of the Magic here in just a second. But Luke, as it is now, April 8th, we're one game back of the 2 seed, like sole owners of the 3 seed. You're tied record-wise with the Knicks. You have the same amount of wins as the Cavaliers, but you've got one less loss than the Cavaliers. You split the season series with the Cavs. The Magic are right now leading their division, so they would have the tiebreaker there. And then you won the season series over the Knicks, so you currently hold the tiebreaker. But Luke, April 8th, I feel like we're saying this every episode now, but here we are, the 3 seed in the East. You've got 4 games left, 2 of which are going to come against the Milwaukee Bucks. If you beat Houston, there's a legitimate chance that those last 3 games, 2 of those being against the Bucks, is going to decide the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, which nobody, like, at not that I would say like delusional, but even like the most like crazily optimistic Magic fans that you think, okay,
delusional.
Maybe they're a little, okay, whatever. Not even they thought we were going to be higher than like the 4 seed. And here you are with a chance to be the 2 seed in the East.
Yeah, you're going against a team in Houston that just got eliminated, by the way, recently, right, from the playoff race. So Houston effectively out of the playoff race at this point, and they're 5-5 in their last 10. You've got a great shot to start your official tune-up for the playoffs. We're going into this is the last week of regular season basketball. So you beat the Houston Rockets, you get in a groove, you get your rotations right. Hopefully the injuries that we'll talk about with State of the Magic and throughout the episode, hopefully they're not, nothing too terrible. and we get these guys back for at least a few of these, a couple of these, 2 of these last 4 games. You would hope they play the last couple at least. But yeah, I mean, what better position could you be in if you're the Orlando Magic? Like I said, you're playing against a team that their season's over this next game, and you're to the point where the magic number is 2, meaning any combination of a Magic win and a Heat loss, or 2 Magic wins, 2 Heat losses, and you're out of you don't even have to play in the play-in. Take care of business against a wounded Houston Rockets team, maybe a hurt ego team that had their dreams crushed recently, and keep taking care of business.
I just feel like they're probably going to want to play spoiler. The Rockets and an Ime Udoka coach team, they're still a very, they've got veterans on that team. It's a hard-nosed team. They've been playing well, the last, since the All-Star break for sure, as they've made this run, and now tonight officially get eliminated in an overtime loss to the Mavericks. They have lost 5 in a row, but a lot of those games have been competitive. So, yeah, definitely by no means oh, hey, look, we've only got Houston and then we're on to Milwaukee, because that's the first night of a back-to-back. And if the Magic are too worried about looking at that 2 seed and they overlook Houston even a little bit, it might not really matter those last few games in terms of getting to the 2 seed. Now, if you're talking about being 3 or 4 in the East, you just want to take care of business the last few games here. But Jalen Suggs said something tonight after the win over the Bulls that he said, I'll admit it's been hard to stay locked in because the team is so excited about playing the playoffs. If you want to play in the playoffs, you have to be locked in this time of year. We're going to talk about the Charlotte game, but his comments tonight, looking back at that Charlotte game, doesn't surprise me at all that maybe this team is finding it difficult right now to stay locked in and finding it difficult not to overlook a Charlotte team that you blew the doors off a couple weeks ago. And it was a get back, like Jamal Mosley said after that game Friday night. So you can't overlook Houston. Jamal Mosley talked about it tonight after the game, that at this point, we can't worry about anything else going on around us. We can't worry about 2 games from now, 3 games from now. We have to focus on the next opponent each and every day. That's what they need to be working towards right now. Don't forget, folks, that next Sunday, the last game of the regular season, April 14th, when the Magic take on the Milwaukee Bucks at home, that game has a chance to be for the 2 seed. We're having a 6th fan show. This isn't 7th heaven or whatever I was just trying to say. 6th fan show. Ben will be recording outside of Kia after that game, and it's probably going to be pretty crazy if the Magic are able to clinch the 2 seed that night. But regardless, we want you all out there. It's the last game of the regular season. It's fan appreciation night. Just go out there, talk about what this regular season has meant to you. I know it's meant a lot to a lot of Magic fans. Definitely one of my favorite regular seasons of all time at this point. One of my favorite teams of all time. If for no other reason, Luke, than when I was young and the Magic were in the Eastern Conference Finals and the NBA Finals, it's oh, this is what it's all about, being a sports fan. And you take that for granted. Mm-hmm. And then now that I've lived basically an entire lifetime since then, it feels like, and you've seen how dark things can get being a sports fan. Around that time, for me, my freshman year of high school, the Giants won the Super Bowl. They beat the undefeated New England Patriots at that time. A couple of years later, the Magic go to the finals. A couple of years after that, the Giants win the Super Bowl again. And then almost immediately after that, the Giants have been terrible. The Magic have been terrible since then. And in that, decade plus, I've just grown a new sense of appreciation for successful teams, because I haven't seen one in a long time. So if you're going to be at that game, please make sure that you stop by and talk to Ben after that Bucks game on the 14th.
Also, to note with that game, you said that it should mean something, the game at that point. I can guarantee you that game's going to mean something. And it might not be, we're playing for the 2 seed, but it could mean anything, right? As far as how that game will dictate your seeding in the playoffs. It's going to come down to that game. Whether that is the 2 seed, whether that is the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, or heck, even the 7. That game's going to mean something. There's only 3 games even that separate the Magic from the Miami Heat in that 8 spot. Only 3. 2.5 between them and Philly and all of that and so on and so forth. With only 4 games remaining for the Magic, there's a great chance. So if you are able to be at that game, it's an early one. It's a 1 p.m.er. So if you guys can make it, if you are local especially, try to get tickets, even if it's last minute. Get some nosebleeds. Just go and enjoy it, because regardless, like I said, that will be a huge game. It's going to have ginormous playoff implications. It will literally dictate who we play in the first round. So if you can make it and you're local, absolutely be there. Like I said, 1 p.m. tip-off, and then go talk it over with our guy Ben Gifford following the game.
State of the Magic. This week, the Magic went 3-1 on the week with wins over Portland and New Orleans. Then the loss to Charlotte on Friday, finishing the week with the win over the Bulls on Sunday. They currently sit third in the Eastern Conference with a record of 46-32. They are 16 games back of Boston. Boston has wrapped up the number 1 seed throughout the playoffs and obviously the Eastern Conference. The Magic are just 1 game back of the 2 seed Milwaukee Bucks. They are a half game. Well, no, they're now tied rather with the New York Knicks. But again, because of the season series, the Magic hold a tiebreaker there. We are a half game up on the Cleveland Cavaliers, a game and a half up on the Indiana Pacers, 2.5 games up on the Philadelphia 76ers, 3 games up on the Miami Heat, with 4 games to go. With the Magic's magic number at this point being 2, that's with Philadelphia, with Miami. So a Magic win with a Philadelphia loss and a Miami Heat loss, you would clinch at least the 6th seed. You wouldn't be any lower than that. So looking pretty good, Luke, for the Magic here. This on the season, they have a 23rd in the NBA in offensive rating with a rating of 113.1. They're 3rd in the NBA with a defensive rating of 110.6, and they are 12th in net rating with a net rating of 2.5. After the All-Star break, the Magic are 18th in offensive rating, 2nd in defensive rating now, and 4th in net rating. Caleb Houston still out with the right ankle sprain. Jonathan Isaac missed Friday against Charlotte with back spasms. Tried to come back Sunday against the Bulls, played 5 minutes, and then missed the rest of the game. And then Franz Wagner left Sunday's game 2 minutes into the third quarter with a right ankle sprain. Had x-rays at Kia Center. Those came back negative, but he was ruled out. He's going to be day-to-day moving forward. Hopefully, neither of those guys miss too much time, because the Magic are desperately going to need both of those guys down the stretch here and heading into the playoffs. And now, Luke, let's talk about Friday night against the Charlotte Hornets. With the wins that we had earlier in the week, at home versus Portland, although it was a disappointing win, the win at New Orleans, which was much more encouraging for sure. You go into Friday night, the Magic were big, heavy favorites over the Charlotte Hornets, and you just crushed them. A couple of weeks ago, you beat them 112-92. I think you led by 40 at one point in that game. And it's like, okay, the Magic really should be able to take care of business against the Charlotte Hornets team. But Charlotte and Brandon Miller especially just come out of the gate on fire in that first quarter. Charlotte outscores the Magic 38-23. Brandon Miller had 19 points in the first quarter. He was 7 of 7 from the floor, 4 of 4 from behind the arc. The Hornets shot 73% from the floor and 75% from 3. Magic had 4 first-quarter turnovers, shot 39% from the floor and 22% from behind the arc, 2 of 9. Magic outscored the Hornets the rest of the way by 6, but every time the Magic cut it to 6, close to halftime, Hornets built the lead back up to 15. The Magic got it down to 6 again in the third quarter. Charlotte built the lead back out to 15. The Magic got it down to 4, within the final minutes before Hornets able to just sort of push it out again. And to me, Luke, this was one of the most, if not the most, it was one of the most disappointing losses of the season, just given the time of year. When you look around the rest of the league that night, just the way that some of those other games went. Like if I go back to Friday here, you had Milwaukee lose to the Raptors, which was big. You had the Bulls beat the Knicks. You had Rockets and the Heat. That one was pretty close, but especially that Milwaukee and the Knicks loss, you just come away from that like, man, it probably didn't bite us that bad when you look at the way that the standings are now, but you would be right there for the 2 seed right now with the Bucks if you were able to pull off that win Friday night. And it was just a classic case of, you just got your butt kicked, like from the opening tip to the final buzzer. Didn't come out prepared. Jamal Mosley, we talked Monday after the Blazers game, how he came out and like just gave a statement before the game, talk about the Magic standard, how we didn't play up to the Magic standard. He hadn't done that at all in his first 3 years. Friday night, he also did something else that he hasn't done in his 3 years here with the Magic. After the game, he took complete accountability, said, this loss is on me. Didn't have these guys ready to play. To me, it felt like he was kind of falling on the sword for the team. I didn't feel like it was completely Jamal Mosley's fault. But 2 weeks, we're seeing things from Jamal Mosley that we've never seen before. I don't hate it at all. I actually kind of like it that he is taking accountability and showing these guys like, hey, I've got your back, but we all need to be better. We're playing to a higher standard now. And yeah, we'll talk about why this game was so disappointing, Luke, but it was a missed opportunity and the Magic were just really bad in it.
The reason that this particular game was super disappointing was maybe because the standard that this team has set. When you talk about the Magic standard, part of the Magic standard and the expectation has been, hey, if the Magic are playing a below 500 team, especially one of the worst teams in the league, Magic are going to likely blow their doors off. They're going to go in there, they're going to be confident with a swagger, and they're going to walk out with a win. So for that first quarter, for you to give up 38 points to the Charlotte Hornets is abysmal, like egregious. There's no other words really to describe that. And that was the most disappointing thing for me. The first quarter, coupled with the fact that the Magic don't lose to below 500 teams this year. They've been awesome. So in the situation, for you to give up that many points in the first quarter to one of the worst teams, yes, but one of the worst offenses in the league. If you're going by offensive rating, they are like 27th or 28th in the league in offensive rating. This is a bad Charlotte Hornets team. And unfortunately, Brandon Miller can't miss specifically, right? 11 of 13 from the field, 5 of 6 from 3. Just an out-of-body experience for Brandon Miller, and he's seemingly getting it together this year. But at the end of the day, you should win these games. You go straight to the team stats, Jonathan, and you see the first thing you should notice. The Magic shot 94 field goal attempts to Charlotte's 72. And you still lost by 9. And you did the things the Magic did the right things to get themselves in those situations to have that many more field goal attempts. They had 15 offensive rebounds. And they had 15 offensive rebounds. They had 64 points in the paint. Everything, if you look at this, aside from the field goal percentage and the 3-point percentage, you look at this and you're like, yeah, the Magic probably won this game. But when it comes down to it, Charlotte just couldn't miss. You weren't playing. There was not that defensive intensity that we saw against Chicago. So you lost this game in the first quarter. We've seen this happen, I believe, a couple other times this year, but I remember it's pretty specifically a couple weeks ago where you just have a terrible first quarter and you can't get it back. That's why you can't start slow. And they started slow in Charlotte. Brandon Miller was feeling it. You let him get in a groove, and the next thing you know, you're losing. So disappointing. Paolo Banchero can't buy a bucket. Frankly, 10 of 26 from the field, 1 of 8 from 3. And Jalen Suggs 0 of 3. Cole Anthony 0 of 4 from 3. Suggs 0 of 3 from 3, I should clarify. And in this game, really, your only bright spots are like Franz Wagner and Markelle Fultz, and Gary going 4 of 8 from 3. So, disappointing game all the way around. One you want to forget. But also, you talk about, do you want to have this conversation real quick as far as like immediate reaction to this game, the feelings to it, and all that kind of, okay. So, because I want to talk about it because it's interesting.
Really quick, the game you're talking about is the Golden State game where after the first quarter you trailed 27-11.
Yeah, shocking you couldn't get back into that one. No, but what I wanted to say about it was like after this game, you had the obviously the right to feel defeated by and discouraged that this team would roll over and lose this game to Charlotte. Again, it was mainly defense. And most of the time, if you lose due to defensive issues to a terrible offense, it's all effort. It's all being locked in. Excuse me. And what Jalen talked about, after that Bulls game. It's hard to say locked in, blah, blah, we want to play in the playoffs. But where you're right to be discouraged is like in that moment, you look ahead, you didn't know the results were going to go the way they went tonight. It's very easy, and that's why they obviously hindsight is 2020. There's a reason that phrase exists. But you don't know. These are a ton of 50-50 games, especially down the stretch. As the Magic showed in Charlotte, anybody can beat anybody. So you can't just say, oh man, it was an off night. I saw someone say that, by the way. It was an off night. This wasn't an off night. Off in the sense of there was no effort. Nobody was focused defensively. Terrible.
Charlotte
effort.
shot almost 60% from the floor. Like it's not like they shot the ball like kind of good. Like Brandon Miller hits like his first like 3 or 4 threes, and we're still running drop coverage in pick and roll and going under screens and leaving Brandon Miller wide open off pick and rolls when he had hit like his first 4 threes, and like, it just made no sense.
And listen, I'm sure you could go back and say, hey, so and so player was Charlotte, like the entire team collectively just was hitting tough shots. But you know how the players get the confidence to hit tough shots? It's when your defense sucks and you do stay in drop too long, right? You don't make adjustments. And that's why partially I still love Jamal Mosley saying that like this is on me. He didn't have the guys ready. I think there's some substance to that. Defensively in your scheme, you didn't have them ready. You didn't make the in-game adjustment. And Charlotte went on to make you pay for it.
And they still shot 28 of 42 from 2. Like the like tough shots, like sure, you don't shoot 15 of 30 from behind the arc without hitting tough shots. But when you let a team shoot 28 for 42 from 2, that's just them getting wherever they want repeatedly.
Yeah.
Because to your point, the defense sucks.
And also, this is another reason hindsight is 2020, right? Because you come away, you feel great. You're the 3 seed. You just played the Bulls. And granted, maybe I'm being too harsh, but at the same time, man, like this Charlotte game could mean nothing in the end, right? It could. The Magic still avoid the play-in, which is really the goal at this point. Let's say you avoid the play-in. This Charlotte game and the lack of defensive changes in game, and then the lack of effort overall, that can still definitely translate to a playoff series. So if you're having struggles against one of the worst offensive teams in the league, schematically on defense, God help us if you're playing against some of the best offensives in the NBA, because there's not many bad offenses in the NBA playoffs. Spoiler alert, there's none. So that's really my issue. Yes, we can put the Charlotte game behind us, but I can't put behind the fact of what we saw adjustment-wise or lack thereof in effort. So it stinks, and people can say, oh, just chill out. But, it's one game, blah, blah, blah. But there's a reason they play the games. They reveal more to you than just the result.
And I do think it's easier to sit here and say that now that we've seen the Chicago game play out. Mm-hmm. But when you looked at that loss to Charlotte, and even though you had won the Portland game earlier in the week, you look at 2 of your 3 games from that week, and they were crappy performances. Like the win over Portland, that's the worst win of the season.
Yeah.
And yeah, you might look at the standings at the end of the year and look at that Charlotte game, or you might look at, all 3 losses at home, the Clippers, the Golden State loss, the Sacramento loss, or you can look at the losses, like the last second losses to Atlanta this year. You can look at the losses to Miami earlier in the year without Jimmy Butler. You can look at the loss that you had, at Memphis to basically like a G League roster. The 2 blowout losses to the Brooklyn Nets, which obviously we know the Magic are the much better team. Like you can look at, there's plenty of losses to go up and down like the schedule throughout the year. So I don't want to put so much emphasis on the loss as it is like the time of year, the implications around the league, the stakes of this game, and how you are 9-10 days out at that point from the NBA playoffs or the regular season being over. And it's the first week in April and we're still talking about effort. That should not be the case. Now, people talk about this team being young and being inexperienced. 100% correct. If you bring that up as, I don't want to say it's an excuse because it's a viable reason of why this happened. Like this team needs to learn that, hey, the last couple of weeks, like we've got to be locked in every single night. As excited we are to play in the playoffs, we can't overlook any opponents. Every game matters. Look how close and tight the Eastern Conference standings are. They're going to learn that in time, right? Where I was frustrated and where I still am frustrated about that loss, and honestly, the win over Chicago and the way that they came out of the gate makes Friday's loss even more frustrating for me because what it comes down to is we know this team is so much better than what they showed on Friday, and they have the potential to be such a better team than that. And seeing them come out and just not have the energy, not have the effort, not have the attention to detail and the focus, that's the most frustrating part to me. Big picture, this team is third right now in the Eastern Conference. They have outperformed and overachieved by several miles at this point. That is correct. But when it comes to what this team has talked about all year, really the last 2 years, like remember last year it was all about leveling up, improving in all these areas, dominate the simple, right? And this year, you go on that 9-game win streak in November and into December, and guess what? It's a new ball game. At that point, again, you were second or third in the Eastern Conference after the first couple of weeks of the season, and the entire league is like, whoa, what's going on with the Orlando Magic? And if you go back and listen to those pods at that time, like thinking back to like the low post, Zach Lowe was talking to Doris Burke like the first couple of weeks of December and was like, oh, well, nobody expects the Magic to hang around, right? Like they're going to come down. Well, guess what? Here we are going into the second week of April and the Magic are still right there at the top of the Eastern Conference. This team playing better, you've heard Jamal Mosley talk about it. You've heard Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Mo Wagner, Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz, Wendell Carter. You go up and down this roster and this coaching staff, everybody all year long has talked about improving as the year goes on and having a new standard and holding this team accountable and playing to our standard. We don't get to lose to Charlotte on a Friday night in April in a massive playoff implication game for the Magic and get to go, oh, it's okay, this team is overachieving and they're young. No. There is a new standard that this team is holding themselves to, and that is what winning looks like. It doesn't look like making excuses because a team is young. Winning looks like, no, you said there is a new standard. You've shown us that there is a new bar. We are going to hold you to that standard, and if you don't get to that bar, it is a disappointment. Win, lose, or draw. It's not about the result. It's about the process, and Friday night, their process sucked. The defense sucked. The effort sucked. And when that happens, I think Magic fans who are very passionate about this team, some people might take the team too seriously. Hello, myself included. That's totally fine. But for the people that don't care about that, that's fine. Like whatever, that's your prerogative. That's your perspective. But Magic fans that are overreacting maybe a little bit to one loss in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's the end of the world. Now, there are people talking about how some people were saying the world has ended, the season's over, we suck, blah, blah, blah. Stuff like that, is it a bit of an exaggeration? But if you're just trying to hold this team to the standard that they have again and again said that they're trying to hold themselves to, I don't see an issue with that.
I have grown to hate this is a young team stuff.
They have shown, I'm sorry to cut you off, they have shown that they're so much better than just, oh, it's a young team. How are they a young team when we were beating Denver and Boston in in the play-in in November. How are they a young team? We're sitting here at the third in the Eastern Conference. Like you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, that was really like that's my point. Young teams aren't typically good defensively. The Magic are. Young teams don't beat bad teams consistently. The Magic have, aside from this Hornets game and maybe a couple other bad losses. Young teams aren't good, period. And the Magic are. So let's not just say, because some people would say, well, Luke, like, yes, they beat bad teams consistently, so why are you so irritated about this Hornets loss? I'm just irritated about the excuse of the team being young. Just say the effort wasn't there and the in-game adjustments weren't there. That's why you lost. You didn't lose because you're young. That Hornets team, they're young. They're injured and they're bad. That is a team that can say that. Oh, we're bad because we're young. You don't get to be third in the Eastern Conference like you, to your point that you alluded to. And then when you drop a game to the Hornets, who are terrible, all at the hands of because you weren't good defensively, which is where you've hung your hat all year. They weren't focused. They're just young. They'll learn. It's like, no, you need to be focused in every situation, especially down the stretch here. So that's my whole thing. I'm definitely done with this is a young team. That's not an excuse anymore. It is a young team. That is factual.
When we get to the playoffs, to me that's a whole different level of intensity.
Is going to be yes. But listen, that is.
Or if this was Milwaukee or Boston or Denver, like
giving up the Hornets shooting 58%, 59%, whatever it is from the field is so much different than the Boston Celtics shooting that percentage on you, because the chances are Boston was just playing their butts off. Charlotte doesn't do this to teams. They don't. You don't show up in the season and have 19 wins just cause you're unlucky. You're bad. Right? So, yes, when you get to the playoffs, you're in a pool of teams that have proven to be as good as you all season. They've beat the bad teams for the most part, unless you're the Indiana Pacers, right? They've beaten the bad teams. They've done what's expected. They've shown up. They do the work. That's the pool of teams where it is appropriate to say, we're inexperienced. This is our first time here. This wasn't the Magic's first time playing a crappy team. And maybe this rant has gone on too long, and it probably has. The segment is probably way longer than needed. But it is just the point that I'm coming from. Like, I think it's an important point. And I hope that people can think differently about the team as a result of this, maybe. Because you weren't young. You just sucked. You had a bad night, a terrible night.
And all of this to say, we don't think the Magic suck. Like, True. We don't think like...
That's why we're responding this way.
Exactly. It's because we think they're awesome. Yeah. Because we know they're awesome.
Yeah.
And when they don't play to the level that we know they're capable of, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
It's like, because... Like, guess what? Like, I love like jumping around and screaming in my living room when the Magic are playing well. I also just love watching this team be good and play good basketball and love each other and be happy. It's so much fun to root for these guys.
Yeah.
And when you can't do that because they're playing like crap, it's frustrating. One of the joys of my life is robbed from me. Like we are reacting this way because of the fact that we so strongly believe in this team and we know how good they are and how they can be. Hey, and it was frustrating to see that performance on Friday.
The last thing I'll say, the old concept of the coach doesn't yell at the bad players. The coach doesn't get on to the bad players because he knows they suck. And he knows that they're going to suck for the rest of their lives. The coach is all over yelling, screaming, getting on to the very good players on his team. That's simply what Jonathan and I are doing, right? The Magic are the good player, the good team, the team we expect great things out of because they have done just that all year. They are number 3 in the freaking Eastern Conference. They're an incredible team. to be that young, especially, but they're an incredible team, period. So that's why. That's all. That is the only reason. Like you said, we don't think this team sucks. They are going to be a special group. They already are. But if you're not excited about the next 6, 7, 8 years of this team, then I don't think you're never going to be excited about the Magic.
Or anything in your entire life, as a matter of fact. And I'll say last thing here. If you are one of these folks that wants to play that card of like, hey, they're young and they're experienced, you better play all those cards you got this year, because I don't think anybody's going to accept that next year when this team is probably going to win, 48, 49 wins like 48, 49 games this year. Going into next season, there's going to be a entirely new level of expectations. I hope you all have understood and appreciated just how fun this season is, because it like kind of came out of nowhere to a certain extent. The Magic are not sneaking up on anybody next year. There are going to be a lot of expectations on this team heading into next year. So, and guess what? It's our job to hold them accountable. We've had this conversation before about like, who cares what the fans think? Who cares what the fans say? Don't forget, none of this happens without the fans. Mm-hmm. There's no National Basketball Association without the fans. There's no Orlando Magic without Orlando Magic fans. So people who feel a certain way about, why does the team care what the fans say? Because the fans make it all happen. Don't forget that, y'all. Okay, now let's shift to a much more positive note. I want to give a special shout out to our patrons. The folks help keep the lights on, help really make everything happen. We have a brand new patron this week, a longtime supporter of the show, like OG. Like I don't know how many more people have been listening and following and supporting longer than this guy. Shout out to Eli. Really, really appreciate Eli joining at the All-Star tier and is on our Discord channel as well. Anytime we have a brand new patron, we give them a very special shout out. Starting at our All-Star tier, that gets you access to our Discord community and helps support the show. We have close to like 70 patrons at this point in our Discord community. Yeah, 68 as a matter of fact, closing in on 70. And they're still talking about the Orlando Magic throughout the night here all around the world. So if you want to be part of our Discord community, you can join our Patreon starting at the All-Star tier and our Elite tier and Hall of Fame tier. Those also have those benefits as well. And then we give a special shout out to our Hall of Fame and Elite tier patrons each and every episode. We'll go ahead and start with the Court Cousins: Drew Gooden, Armin, Carson Chulo, Ellis, Jonathan Borges, normal Magic player history, Gabe Gaines, Wiffle, Michael Martin, Jamel Miller, Michael Salapong, Donkey Punch, Dave, Paolo and Francis, Warmth, Pierre, A. Dylan Holden, Mr. Mikey, Eduardo Sanchez, Danimal, Bobby Skinner, Goody 93, Teddy Sylvia, Eric Lopez, Fuchsia, Bill Fulton, Edmund Lagone, Jose Esquilin, Caleb Pete, Cannibalism, Time Mr. TV, ESPN Really Sucks, Gear 95, Shred, Junior Bruce, Half Rican, Shahin 177, Bobby the Don, Himlo, Ben Himro, RM Prof 221, Ray Pastrana, Magic Kid 714, Mysterious Mosley, Victor Cologne, Irish Magic Mike, Austin Lampe, Random Hustle, Only France Maria, Keith Wallace, Brett's Currency, Kev Bruv Sal, Kason Green, Santi Leon, Kane Eckler, The Distract, Ahmad Timsa, Chansu, Tom Gatson, Dead Air, Richard Tuttle, Jeremiah Quintero, Magic Wire, Debo 1980, Magic Matt, Michael Thompson, Mama Richmond, Next Napa, What's Up, Playoffs 2024, Dylan Fay, Sammy, David Duffy, and I'm just going to call you Smith's Sheiks. I'm not saying the whole thing. Shout out to you. Really appreciate all the love, but I cannot do the tongue twister every single shout out here. Really, really appreciate it. Again, you can find us at patreon.com/the6man show.
We are going to get to the Jam Hot Chicken Jam of the Week soon. But first, I do want to tell you guys a little bit about our fine fellows and women over at Jam Hot Chicken. Jam Hot Chicken is located at 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square there in beautiful Winter Park. Great outside location. If you have not been, go check them out. Follow them on social media at Jam Hot Chicken. Go to their website, jamhotchickenfl.com, to access the menu, online ordering, music playlists, all sort of things like that, and let them know that we sent you.
Now, as negative and as doom and gloom as that last segment about the Charlotte game sounded, Luke, the first quarter from the Magic, and just to put this in a little bit of context here, the Magic outscored the Bulls 31-14 in the first quarter. The Magic opened the game up, very first possession. Jalen Suggs drives down the lane for the two-handed dunk. really set the tone early. As good as the offense was in the first quarter, and it was really good, 55% from the floor, just 1 of 6 from behind the arc and 8 of 8 at the free throw line. The defense in the first quarter for the Magic against this Bulls team was, I can't really point to that unit playing better collectively than they did that first quarter. Like, they were just all over the Chicago Bulls until that starting lineup like got subbed out. Like, the bench unit comes in and there was a little bit of a drop off defensively, but that 5-man unit of Franz, Paolo, Wendell, Gary, and Jalen were just so devastating defensively. Like, Paolo Banchero in that first quarter was a plus 17 in 9.5 minutes for the Magic. All the frustration and the disappointment of that loss Friday was completely washed away for me watching the way that those guys came out of the gates and playing with their hair on fire, because it was a get back, right? Like, they realized Friday we played like crap. I know Jalen Suggs was talking about Jamal Mosley pregame and gave this whole speech on how they need to be locked in defensively. And I genuinely don't know how much more locked in that starting unit could have been defensively. The only thing that would have made like that lineup better would probably be just switching out J.I. for Wendell. Like, I'm not taking anything away from Wendell. Like, Wendell was incredible in the first quarter. He was really good defensively. We know that Jonathan Isaac is the best defender on this team, like, when healthy. I think him being on the floor is part of the best defensive lineup for this team. But that's legitimately, like, if you are just like picking the smallest of nits from that first quarter, like, that's just how good the Magic were defensively. What were your thoughts, like, watching that team in the first quarter?
I think Gary Harris might be the first player to shoot only twice and be the highest team plus minus at plus 29. The reason I say that, and the reason I think that he was absolutely crucial to this team, he plays 33 minutes. He has 3 steals. He is a huge part, and that was 3 steals in the entire game, but he plays a huge part in that first quarter and throughout the game defensively, despite not giving you much besides spacing offensively, because regardless of what you think about Gary Harris, he is providing spacing just due to the fact that he can knock down the 3 ball. So the spacing is there, so that's a plus offensively, even if he's not necessarily even really taking shots. But defensively, he was part of the reason that defense, a huge part of the reason that defense was so devastating. So wanted to give a shout out to Gary. You guys know that I love Gary. There will always be a soft spot in my heart for Gary Harris, regardless of what happens beyond this season and the future of the Magic with him. But all that to say, yeah, I mean, just echoing everything you just said, to hold Chicago to 14 after giving whatever it was, 36-38 up to Charlotte in the first quarter a few nights ago, it was like, number one, where the heck was this? But number two, it's a great get back spot. It's a great way to say, like, really, it's the closest thing you can get to an apology as a fan. Hey, we're sorry. We sucked the other night. Here's the gift. We're going to hold Chicago to 14 points in the first quarter in what is right now the biggest game we've played all season for standings implications, playoff implications. Incredible first quarter. And then to go on the rest of the game and you win this one wire to wire. Chicago never leads. You extend, you get 21 points as your largest lead. That first quarter set the tone, much like it set the tone against Charlotte in the worst way. But you flipped that on its head. This team came back and it righted the ship.
Yeah, they were great in the first quarter. The Bulls are still in that position, like, where they're trying to get to 9 so that they can have home court advantage in that first playing game. Like, the playing game is set. It's going to be Atlanta, Chicago, just who's going to host that game, really. So Chicago still has things that they're fighting for, and it's still a team with a lot of veterans. You knew that they weren't just going to sort of go away, and they responded a little bit in that second quarter. The defensive energy, the other 3 quarters wasn't quite as good as the first, but that was like basically like as good as it gets defensively for the Magic in that first quarter. So you're not super upset that they weren't able to sustain that for 48 minutes because that would just be insane. So I think you led by 12 at halftime, and then they try to sort of cut into the lead a little bit in the third. You're able to extend that out. And then fast forward to the fourth quarter, they're able to cut the lead to 6 with 6:49 to go. But then the Magic go on a, what was that, like 12-1 run to push the lead back out to 17 with a Wendell Carter Jr. 3 with 3:17 to go to make it 108-91. And then basically like the rest is what it is. Like there was garbage time the last minute and a half of this game. Goga, Jet, Anthony Black, Chuma, and Admiral Schofield check in with 1:29 to go. Jet Howard did hit a 3, looked really good. It was good to see that from Jet. Super just excited about what he's going to bring us next year. The Osceola season is over. You know, they lost in the second round of the playoffs. They had the first round bye. You're probably not getting, I feel pretty good about saying you're not getting Jet Howard minutes in a meaningful, significant way in the playoffs. But all of the experience that he's had in the development that the Magic invested into Jet Howard this year, I'm so excited to see that pay dividends. As much as it hurts me, like Jet Howard, you hope he gets the Caleb Houston minutes next year. Like if there's a guy out of the lineup and they need somebody in like a spot start, or somebody goes out in the middle of a game and you need to bring somebody in off the bench, like where we've seen Chuma and Caleb at different points throughout the season, you hope that Jet Howard is the guy getting those minutes next year. If he's not, something's gone really wrong because he was the 11th pick in this year's past draft. So it was fun to see Jet at the end of the game. And then, like, again, just credit to the Magic, the way they started this game, the way that every time the Bulls started to cut into the lead, they would push it back out. And then when the Bulls like really made a push, in the mid part of the fourth quarter, how they just went like, no, this is not happening. And then you have a Paolo Banchero 18-footer, a Joe Ingles 3, Paolo with a dunk, Wendell with a hook shot, and then Wendell with a 3 in the course of about 3 minutes to really break that game open and slam the door. Like, I think Wendell hits that 3 with 3 minutes 7. I think it actually might have been the Ingles 3 to put us up by 11. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to tweet like, that's how you close the door in the biggest game of the year. Bulls are making a run. DeMar looked great in that fourth quarter. He's making everything. And Paolo was like, no, either I'm going to get to my spots or I'm going to find the open guy, which is exactly what he did on that Joe Ingles 3 with 6:10 to go to give the Magic an 11-point lead. And like, that is how this team should respond. I thought they were going to do it against Charlotte. I like, even though the Magic were down by, 19 or whatever it was to Charlotte, until like the last like 7-8 minutes of that game, I always felt like the Magic and the Vegas betting odds, like the Magic were down like 11 in the third quarter, and they were still favored to win that game by like 2.5. Everybody thought the Magic were going to come back and win that game, and they didn't. You gave the perfect analogy a moment ago. This is as close as you're going to get to an apology from your favorite sports team with the response in a performance like this.
And in this game against Chicago, you took care of the basketball despite defense being where you absolutely were putting the emphasis tonight. Because, Chicago shoots 6 of 20 from 3. And you shoot 15 more shots than them in this one. So again, another example like of what can happen when you have that many more shots, when you give yourself that many opportunities to have that many more shots. Unlike that Charlotte game, you're able to lock down defensively, make them pay on the interior. You get almost 50 points in the paint. You get 49 or 48. But the biggest thing to me, aside from just clamping up defensively, was the ability to force turnovers and take care of the ball. 21 turnovers according to ESPN for Chicago. 10 turnovers according to ESPN for the Magic. That was huge. And as much as we've given him crap, Markelle Fultz,
awesome. Last 2 games has been awesome.
He has been. He's been very good against these teams. I think my point still stays the same. but it was good to see. I mean, you need someone to step up in games, and Markelle Fultz has been able to do that and be the bright spot in the last couple games.
Want to take everybody back really quickly for this week's Jam Hot Chicken Jam of the Week. If we go to the 151 mark in the third quarter, the Magic were up 83-68 on the Chicago Bulls. Kobe White runs a little bit of a high pick and roll. Mo Wagner jumps up on him, able to poke the ball loose, drives the length of the floor. Kobe White tries to recover and contest Mo, but he's already up in the air for that Statue of Liberty dunk and has the dunk and the foul over Kobe White. The entire bench goes crazy. Jalen Suggs acts like he's passing out, gives the Magic at that point a 17-point lead. I believe he made the free throw as well. Just an awesome play. The Paolo Banchero dunk against the Pelicans, like the sidestep dunk over Herb Jones, like that sort of overhead swing through, and the dunk on Herb Jones was awesome. We basically flipped a coin, and the Mo Wagner dunk from tonight, again, it's just sort of fitting that it was an and one. It's the biggest game of the year so far, but that is this week's Jam Hot Chicken Jam of the Week. Mentioned this earlier, but just want to touch on it again. 2 minutes into the third quarter, Franz Wagner steps on Ayo Dosumu's foot and tweaks the ankle and like goes down and actually requested help from the bench to even stand up. He sort of limped and hobbled off the floor, walked back to the locker room on his own power. They did an X-ray. X-ray came back negative. I don't know if they're going to do an MRI, but Franz Wagner was pretty soon after that ruled out for the night. And then J.I. was out Friday with the back spasms, was questionable going into that game, this game Sunday, and then played 4 minutes, 49 seconds. Didn't look like himself, was subbed out, and didn't return to the game. So got a big one coming up against the Houston Rockets on Tuesday. Those guys. I don't want to be like, oh no, they just need to play because they need to play. I'm saying the Magic need them to play. Like whether or not they're able to go is going to be one thing. Like if they're hurt and they can't play, they can't. But the Magic need those guys to play. It is so important that those guys play and are able to help this team over the course of the last 4 games here down the stretch.
This stretch, script writers couldn't write a better final week playoff implication stretch for the Orlando Magic, Jonathan. As we've said, you've got the Rockets on Tuesday, who, by the way, odds have opened up since we started recording. The Magic are 1.5 point favorites in Houston to beat the Rockets. Then you've got Bucks, Sixers, Bucks. Those Bucks games, as we know, are huge. Could have 2-seed implications, could have 3-seed implications. Who knows? And then you have the Sixers sandwiched in between that, who are on a heater right now. 5 straight wins. They get a double OT win on Sunday night without Joel Embiid. Granted, it was the Spurs, but Tyrese Maxey went absolutely bonkers. They're in a rhythm. And you are going to have that huge game against them. So this whole week, it goes without saying, but it just can't be overstated. It's coming from a point for me of talking about this and repeating this stretch, this final week, from just like disbelief. I was watching your post-game video on Instagram, and you were like, said something about, final stretch, the 2 seeds not out of the realm of possible, something along those lines. And I was just like watching it thinking, I wish I could show you this video last October and just see you lose your mind, because we would provide no context. You just watch the video and you don't even get to know how we got there. It's been a lot of reflection about like approaching this final week of the season. We are in the final week of the season, and the Magic, even though it is unlikely, have a shot at winning 50 games with 4 games remaining. This team has exceeded expectation all year. They're a great team. And however this last week shakes out, I'm going to be proud of them. Even if that's you get the 2 seed or you get the 7 seed. Would it suck to play in the play-in? Absolutely. But do I think if you give this team 2 win or go home scenarios, being the 7th seed, even if you lost that first one, I think this team figures out a way to make the postseason regardless, the playoffs regardless. I hope it doesn't come to that, but it's been a fun season, man. I can't believe it's almost over for the regular season and we get to watch some playoff basketball.
This is really unlike this show, but this is really crazy. Shams, breaking news. After 15 seasons at Kentucky, John Calipari is in serious talks on a deal to become the new head coach of the University of Arkansas.
Interesting.
I saw a tweet about that before we started recording. I was like, there's no way that he leaves Kentucky. But anyways, that's crazy. Back to the Magic. I'm looking at Basketball Reference. They have like a playoff probabilities report that results are based off of 10,000 simulations on the remainder of the season, including the play-in round. So it doesn't really mean a ton, but I think it's just pretty cool. When you look at the Magic's, like what they say, like their probabilities are in terms of seeding, 10.8% chance that we end up with the 2 seed. I would agree with that. It's like a 10% chance. A lot has to go right. You have to beat the Milwaukee Bucks probably twice. 20.5% chance that they end up 3. 23.4% chance that they end up 4. Right now, they are saying that is statistically the most likely outcome for the Magic is that they end up 4. With the Magic hosting a playoff series this year, like having home court in a playoff series is crazy. 20.8% chance that you end up 5. So basically even odds that you end up 3 or 5. Crazy to think about. And then 10% chance for 5, and then a 6.7% chance for 7, and a 4.3% chance for 8. And then I don't know much about this site. It's playoffstatus.com, and looking at their NBA postseason probabilities, they are giving the Magic a 49% chance to make it to the second round. A 50-50 chance of playing in the second round, of winning a first-round playoff series. Don't put a ton into this. I know nothing about playoffstatus.com, but right now I really like what they had to say about the Magic. And a 50-50 shot of winning a first-round freaking playoff series is bonkers to think about.
You know what I've missed? I have really missed 538.com. They did a lot of playoff probability stuff in the last however long a while, I guess. They got it. For those of you who are wondering, which is maybe a very, very small fraction of you, if you were like me and you've been trying to find 538 playoff probability stuff for months now, I have your answer. They sold to like ABC or something like that.
Crazy, actually.
They sold to ABC or somebody like that.
Yeah, it's ABC.
And ABC just nixed the whole sports thing. So they just do like politics odds and stuff like that. Super lame. But anyway, yeah, that's what happened with 538 and why you cannot see what percentage the Magic have for playoffs, because that site, if you try to find it, it will only show you last year's because it's over. So that's the sad truth, unfortunately. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up like division winner odds right now, and I think because of the fact that the Timberwolves are playing the Lakers, basically every site has their division winner odds, down. That's usually the case as games are going on. Mm-hmm. But I feel like we've got to wake up tomorrow with the Magic the Magic have a really good chance to be hanging a Southeast Division banner in the practice facility this offseason, which is cool. Don't hang that stuff in the arena, but if you want to hang that stuff in the practice facility, I'm totally cool with that. Like, in arena should be for like conference winner, NBA finals winner, jersey retirements.
Here's what you could. Here's the meat in the middle. What you could do is have a banner that, because you won the division, that just says the Miami Heat lowercase suck, and just hang that in the arena to know.
You could put that on the middle of the floor, and I wouldn't care.
Exactly, because the Magic at that point will have won the division, meaning they overtook the Miami Heat and
best team in Florida, baby.
And let's be honest, you should be able to maintain the best team of Florida title for a long time.
Yeah.
So hopefully that happens. The Magic win the division. Obviously, we'll record and you guys will have an episode on Thursday. But who knows? Next Monday for 2 episodes from now, you guys could be listening to this. The Magic could be the 2, the 3 seed, winners of the Southeast Division. We could be walking and talking different next Monday. That's all I'm going to say.
I can't wait to be able to say like we are the best team in Florida. Like when the season is, and
you can go ahead.
The more that Jeff talks about it, man, like give me the Heat in the first round. Like give me the Heat in the first round. Give me the Cavs. Give me the Knicks. Give me the Pacers. Like I'm gonna feel pretty good about our odds in any of those series. Knicks and the Heat, like you're probably losing those series if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But like the way that Cleveland has looked and the way that we played against Indiana this year, I would feel really, really, really good about a series versus either of those teams. And I do give us like a, 50-50 chance against the Knicks or the Heat.
Mm-hmm.
Without Julius Randle and the way that the Heat have looked this year, let's do it.
Interesting. It could be
ready.
Interesting for sure. Yeah. Ready for it.
We haven't done the week ahead. Really quickly, at Houston, Tuesday, you have a back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday. You're at Houston, at Milwaukee. Friday, you're at Philadelphia. Sunday, you come back home, last game of the season versus the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm going to go 2-2. I think you beat Houston, and then you win that last game of the year at home versus Milwaukee.
Okay. I'm going to say 2-2, but I'm going to say you lose to Houston. And the reason I say you lose to Houston is because I think J.I. and Franz both don't play. I think they don't play, and I really do think it's in preparation for the huge game against the Bucks on Wednesday, where you have a chance to win. You take your chances and hope that you can beat Houston without those two guys. You roll into Wednesday off that back-to-back, which Milwaukee, by the way, is also coming off a back-to-back in this situation, I believe, too. And you've got a fully, rested Jonathan Isaac and Franz Wagner ready to take on the world. I'm going to say you win that Bucks game. So you lose Rockets, you win Bucks. I'm going to say you lose or you beat the Sixers.
Oh no!
And then I'm going to say that you lose to Milwaukee, the final game of the year.
Oh my gosh!
2-2.
You lose the 2 seed game.
Yeah.
At the end of the year.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, the Heart and Hustle Magic team. What is that? The 2000 Magic team. Let me go back and take a look at that. I believe they missed. Yeah, the 1999-2000 team. I believe they missed the playoffs because the penultimate game, the 81st game of the season, you lose to the Milwaukee Bucks, 85-83. I believe that's why they missed the playoffs, because they beat the Raptors in the last game. So it's like another Magic season coming down the wire where like it matters if you are able to beat the Milwaukee Bucks or not.
Yeah.
So, all right.
It's going to be wild, that's for sure.
2-2 puts you at 48 wins, which should be good enough for like 4 or 5. And I'm good with that. Honestly, if that's where you end up, I'm good being the 4 or 5 seed in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll take it.
All right, I think that's going to do it for this one.
Yeah. I think we're good to go.
Let's wrap it up, brother. That is going to do it for this one. For Luke Sylvia, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to the Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!